Yo, what up, guys? It's Flark, and I'm going to talk about rated solo shuffle today. I know, kind of a weird concept for a video, but hear me out. I think it's one of the best ideas they've had for getting new people into PvP and keeping them there. Just actually keeping people engaged in a PvP environment. I know there are some possible errors with the design that I'm going to talk about at the very end, but I want to talk about what makes this such a great idea first, because I wanted to stay positive with this. I think it's an awesome thing for Dragonflight, and I want to talk about all the ways that it functions well, even things that you might not have thought of at first, and they might surprise you. And this is coming from somebody who did not have faith in the solo queue idea. So trust me. I'm gonna talk about a lot of things here, so I'll have some timestamps below if you want to get to a certain point. But I'm gonna start things off with some self-reflection, because I was wrong. I was wrong about the idea that solo queue would never work. I wanted to talk about what they did that made it such a functional system. So let's do that. The DK Discord had a lot of people asking for a solo queue concept for a long time, and I always say, nah, that's a stupid idea, blah, 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 it doesn't work. And I think I was too quick to neglect it because of some clear problems than to realize that it could be implemented in a different way and fix those problems. So when you talk about solo queue, you talk about queuing up, getting a random threes team, paired against a random threes team. You guys would battle it out, then whoever won would get regular points, and whoever lost would lose regular points, just like it was a regular threes game. And that doesn't work. That's true. That does not work, because what would happen is you would get a terrible comp and you would lose by comp alone. It would effectively be an RNG bracket. There was no saving grace, and people would get frustrated and quit. And it would thin out the player base because there would be threes, twos, and solo queue. But the people in solo queue would get frustrated and leave, and it would just be like draining people out of the game. But that's just solo queue implemented exactly like that. There are smart people out there, and they can take designs like this and keep working on them, workshopping them until they work. And there are two things about rated solo shuffle that makes it work where solo queue is a concept that I just presented does not work. First, shuffle, the shuffle mechanic. That seemed kind of gimmicky at first, but actually really works well in a rated environment, because the actual gimmick was just getting random teams, but now you get a random lobby and you play with every person, right? So there is a sense of unity there. It's a sense of cohesion where every matchup is made, and whoever wins the most out of all of those types of matchups is in good shape. So the shuffle mechanic messes around with some of the comps that you get. You don't just get one comp, but you get many. You get to play with many different people. You get to give yourself more of a chance to win. So before, if you would have just lost, now you can maybe sneak in 2 wins with a good comp, and then maybe sneak in a third by just having a monster game. And then you go from just a loss to 3-3, which is fine, right? So the shuffle mechanic is part one of helping the solo concept work out well in a rated environment. But that needs the part two. This is the part that I completely overlooked to be useful. And the part two is you are not competing for the highest rating in the world. You are competing for the highest of your spec in the world. Boom. That's the bomb you drop on. Wow, that is incredible. Because then you think, wait a minute. So that means there's going to be some specs that Flark represented. He thinks they're going to be a 5-star spec, and some specs that are going to be a 1-star spec. But it actually doesn't matter at all. A 5-star spec means their rating might be higher, and a 1-star spec means their rating might be lower. But that's just to give you the confidence to know you're still doing a great job, even if your rating is lower than maybe a Demon Hunter if you're playing a mage. Because you're not competing against Demon Hunters. You're competing against the other mages. So a 1-star spec might not get as much rating, but it has the exact same thing to compete for. Because let's say you get the title of best Demon Hunter ever, or maybe top 100 Demon Hunters. Well, if you get top 100 mages, even if you do it at 2K rating and he does it at 2600 rating, you got the same thing. you have accomplished exactly as much as they've accomplished, maybe even more, because you're playing a mage, not a demon hunter. Sorry, demon hunters. I think mage is probably a little harder. So that's incredible. They've taken this system, and they've made it so even if a spec is not perfectly good in that environment, it does not matter at all for the competitiveness of that spec, because you're only competing with the other people playing that spec. That second point, that second step, and how they've presented the leaderboard, where it is based on your competition with other people playing your exact spec, and your title will be for the best mage, the best frost mage, best Ellie shaman, right? Or the top 100 Ellie shamans, because not everybody's going to get number one. Only the guy who got number one is going to get number one. But you can compete for top 1,000 Ellie shamans, and then maybe you get to 800, and you're like, whoa, now I'm the 800th best. Now I'm the 600th best, right? And you just keep that progression going, and it is doable no matter what class and spec you're playing. Wow, that is a bombshell of an idea, right? That is so important for solo queue as a whole. Right? So there's one other thing that's so massive here, and this is the thing that ties it all together. Just, I was a little worried about raiding not giving you gear upgrades, because it made you maybe lose something that you were working for, but it still does in PvE, and that's fine. It gives you some gear upgrades in PvE. But the fact that that's true, and all conquest gear is identical in a PvP environment, means not even the quick path to 2100 that a demon hunter gets matters at all, because they're not getting any more PvP gear by getting to 2100 fast. So there is nothing, and I do say this strongly, there is nothing wrong with playing Survival Hunter or Frost Mage or Fire Mage, which I considered a 1-star spec in Solo Shuffle, versus just playing something like Fury Warrior or Demon Hunter or Frost DK, right? Because they're not getting anything from their little number. All they're doing is being compared to other Frost DKs. Maybe there's a trillion Demon Hunters, and maybe they have high rating, but they're only top 2,500 Demon Hunters, and they're like, wow, geez, maybe that's not that great. But then you're over there. Maybe you're lower rating, but you're the top 200 mages. Wow, incredible, right? So there is some really powerful implementations going on here that is going to keep people invested in the game, because that can go for anything. I mean, you could be the top 50th percentile, 60th percentile, 70th percentile. You don't have to be number one to get something out of this. You can compare yourself against your peers and compete in that way, no matter what you're playing. Cool. So that's where I was wrong about solo queue. Those implementations there are just genius, and they really do help the system as a whole. Now, we do have to address the elephant in the room, something worth complaining about. And that's the idea that when somebody quits, the entire lobby was wasted, was pointless. Everything you did, all your amazing plays, everything you worked for, the incredible win that you got, it all results in zero. Nothing. This. All right? That's a problem. No matter how much you penalize that person who rage quit, they're still going to rage quit. It's rage. They're not thinking straight. Believe me, I would know. So, although I haven't quit from a single solo shuffle and I've streamed every single one, but I would know. I get angry too, and unfortunately your judgment is clouded, and they're going to do it, and blah, they're going to take their penalty, but that doesn't help you at all. The person who had 5 wins out of 6 and then they quit and you get nothing, right? So no matter how much you penalize that person, it's not going to make that +0 feel any less frustrating. Here's what they have to do, and I know this is going to be difficult, but I've thought about it hard. You need to use basic arithmetic and mathematics as a whole to give the player a ratio of what they could have earned from a full 6 out of 6 based on how many rounds they played, right? So let's say you played 5 rounds instead of 6 and you won 4. That's 4 out of 5, right? So let's say you played 4 rounds and run 3. That's 3 out of 4. These are just ratios. You didn't play the full 6, but you still won 3 out of 4. There should be some conversion here that allows you to still reward them with points. Now, there is a potential problem with that, which I've thought of. Let's say somebody's only won one round of the 4 rounds played, and it's because they played with a rage quitter and he wasn't doing super well. So perhaps they would have played against him in the next 2 rounds, and they would have got their 1 out of 4 to 3 out of 3, right? So they were 1 win, 3 losses, and then they would have won those last 2 and they would have been 3-3. But now they're only 1-3, so they would lose points that they probably shouldn't lose. What you have to do is just make it so the most that can happen is 0, and the best that could happen is earning points based on how well you did. So you can't really lose points if somebody rage quit. Now, rated solo shuffle is already looking to be very inflated. I've seen somebody with like 3,000 rating on EU. So yes, okay, that does inflate ratings because there's situations that can occur now when somebody quits that people only gain rating and don't lose rating, but who cares? You're only being based off of a percentage of how you do against other players, not your overall rating as a whole. I'm sure 3K is a high number. Sure, so is 4K. People have crazy high IO numbers. It's not like that matters in 3s, right? So solo shuffle is not 3s. Solo shuffle having crazy ratings does not devalue 3s, just like IO does not devalue 3s. It's just a different medium, right? So I don't really think that having solo shuffle kind of have a different numerical system or higher inflation as a whole is going to be a problem. It's certainly not going to be as much of a problem of having many lobbies have people who have 5 wins, somebody rage quits, and they get nothing. That's insane. They didn't just do nothing worth of effort in that solo shuffle. They won 5 games. They were undefeated. Something should be given to these people, right? It's got to be some ratio of what they've won out of the rounds that were played, and just make it so people can't lose rounds if they got boned by only queuing with the rage quitter and then he loses and then he leaves. And those are my thoughts on that. But yeah, other than that, there's not a lot of problems with it. Like I said, those first 2 points at the beginning of the video kind of eliminate any potential problems. Yeah, okay, so Fire Mage doesn't pair well with a lot of things. Doesn't matter. You're only getting compared to other Fire Mages. You can't buff Fire Mage for rated solo shuffle specifically. That would be ridiculous because think of how the other brackets and how other aspects of the game would fall from that. Just realize that because it's spec-based, solo shuffle is a lot more interesting than you probably give it credit for. I think that the rewards are good. I think having totally different types of rewards and leaderboards from 3s is an amazing thing. I think that it gives somebody something to do, right? Let's say I get online. All right, let's move to my YouTube view here. Let's say I get online in this game and I'm here. And there's not a lot of pre-made groups for me, or I'm getting declined a lot, or I just don't feel like pairing up with somebody else and going through the whole motions of, you know, join their team. Oh, can you play this other spec? No, I want to play this spec. Oh, well, you suck. Goodbye. You're only 1800 EXP anyway. You don't want to deal with that, right? All you have to do is bring up this screen, click, click. And that, right? That solved you a lot of problems. That solved a lot of players' you know, worries and doubts about actually playing PvP as a whole. That they have to go through that whole, go through all the motions, go through that whole ordeal just to play the game. Now, click 2 buttons and you're good, right? This is easy to access. There's always something to work for. Unless you're the best of your spec in the entire world, which only one person can be, right? There's always something to work for. It's quick, it's easy, it's challenging, it's rewarding, it's exciting. If they fix that one problem, this may be the greatest PvP edition that they've ever made in the game. And those are my thoughts on Solo Shuffle. So yes, again, in big conclusion to all the 1-star specs out there, you're technically still a 5-star spec if you only compare yourself to the other people of your spec. Don't worry about your number here. Only worry about your number here. And then you're going to create an incredible experience for you the entire expansion. I hope you have a blast. I hope you cared about this video enough to watch some of it. And otherwise, I will see you soon. Peace.